Prophecies and apparitions at Medjugorje, the imminent danger and the need to flee certain places. Imagine an imminent future where the clouds grow darker and the once clear sky seems to foretell a dramatic change. For over 40 years, the prophecies of Medjugorje have warned us of a growing danger that we cannot ignore. From a small village in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the apparitions of the Virgin Mary to the 6 visionaries have spread a message of hope, but also one of caution. A warning that invites us to prepare, to change our lifestyle, to take refuge in safe places, and most importantly, to flee from areas that may be destined for destruction. The apparitions, which began in 1981, have been accompanied by profound messages that speak of prayer, conversion, and above all, an impending judgment. The Virgin Mary has spoken of global warnings, a sign that would mark the end of an era, and a purification that will force us to reconsider everything we have believed so far. But one of the recurring themes in these messages is safety, the need to take refuge, to abandon places that will be invaded by natural disasters, wars, and tribulations. And now, as the signs become increasingly evident, we ask ourselves, are we ready? What must we do to protect ourselves and save our souls and those of our loved ones? The time to make difficult decisions is approaching, and the words of the Virgin Mary at Medjugorje seem more and more like a guide to face what lies ahead. The question is no longer if danger will arrive, but when. But how can we identify the places to avoid? What signs should we observe to act in time? The answer lies in the details of each message given to the visionaries and continuously repeated to us. A clear sign is the call to abandon areas that are linked to sin and corruption, places where spirituality has been stifled. And it is precisely in these places that the danger will be felt most strongly. In this video, we will explore the prophetic words of Medjugorje and what they teach us about the urgency of leaving certain places. Let us prepare together to understand the most disturbing yet most important messages the Virgin has sent us, so that we can remain firm in faith, strong in decisions, and ready to face what lies ahead. The places to avoid. According to the prophecies of Medjugorje, an urgent warning. The prophecies and messages given by the Virgin at Medjugorje do not only warn us of the imminent danger, but also guide us on how to face it. Among the most important indications is a call to leave specific places that, according to the Virgin, will be struck by natural disasters, conflicts, and other forms of purification. But what are these places, and why does the Virgin invite us to flee from them? Large cities and metropolises. The Virgin has often urged us to seek refuge in quieter, more spiritual places, away from the chaos of large cities. Metropolises, symbols of consumerism and alienation from faith, are destined for purification. Cities concentrated with sin and corruption will be the first to be struck, according to the words of the visionaries. Signs of this purification are already visible: political tensions, frequent natural disasters, and conflicts. Large cities, where individualism reigns, seem vulnerable to events that will destroy society at its core. Coastal regions and areas vulnerable to natural disasters. Many of the apparitions have referred to catastrophic events that will particularly affect coastal areas. In this case, natural disasters could include tsunamis, floods, or devastating earthquakes, events that will change the geography of entire regions. The Virgin has urged us to avoid places near the seas, precisely because of their exposure to these calamities. The prophecies indicate that the places most exposed to sin, those that reject God and stray from the faith, will also be the ones to suffer the most severe devastations. Areas with high densities of moral sin. Medjugorje has continuously spoken about the need for purification, especially in relation to places where immorality and a lack of spirituality prevail. These places, where sin seems to dominate, will be devastated by forces coming from divine purification. Places known for immoral tourism, human trafficking, or the promotion of ideologies opposed to Christian values are considered high risk. The Virgin invites us to avoid these places, as they will experience the most painful signs of divine judgment. Nations that reject the Christian faith. The Virgin Mary has also warned of a growing danger threatening countries that have turned away from the Christian faith or are persecuting it. Countries where faith is questioned or even banned, where laws go against Christian principles, will be exposed to purification. These places, which remain in continuous disobedience to God's will experience the worst disasters and tribulations. Areas where political conflict is intensifying. The prophecies of Medjugorje clearly speak of wars and conflicts that will become increasingly frequent. Countries or regions where political tensions are high, where an atmosphere of violence and hatred prevails, will be the first to suffer the effects of a rapidly deteriorating world. The Virgin invites us to flee from these areas, which are destined to become embroiled in wars and internal struggles. Not only moral purification, but also physical purification will occur in these lands. According to the prophecies of Medjugorje, certain cities and specific geographical areas are destined to be more vulnerable to natural disasters, conflicts, or other forms of purification. The Virgin Mary in her messages has often referred to regions of high sin and corruption, which could be among the first to suffer the consequences of this purification. Among the cities that could be significantly affected are the major metropolises that symbolize materialism, alienation from faith, and sin. Specifically, New York, one of the most influential and symbolic cities globally, where consumerism and individualism prevail. Its coastal location and immense population density make it vulnerable to natural disasters, such as floods or attacks, which could destabilize society. Paris, the capital of a country that has experienced a strong separation from the Christian faith. Paris is a center of progressive ideologies that often challenge traditional Christian values. The city could be one of the first to feel the effects of a purification due to its dominant role in Europe and world culture. London, another global financial hub. London is a city that has seen a significant distancing from the Christian faith and a growth in materialism. Moreover, its position as a political and economic center could make it a target in the event of global conflicts or economic disasters. Los Angeles, known for its connection to the entertainment industry and the power it exerts on global culture, Los Angeles is seen as a symbol of moral corruption. Its exposure to earthquakes and other natural disasters makes it particularly vulnerable, aligning with prophecies warning of great disasters in regions tied to sin. Rome, although a sacred city for Christianity, Rome could face difficulties due to internal conflicts within the Church and the moral challenges modern society is experiencing. The Virgin Mary has warned of a period of purification for the Church, and the Italian capital, as the center of Christianity, could be involved in dramatic events. Moscow, the capital of Russia, while a strong spiritual center for the Orthodox Church, is also a city of great political and military power. Geopolitical tensions in this region, combined with the history of ideological conflicts, could make it one of the most exposed cities to global crises. Beijing, China, with its authoritarian regime and ongoing religious repression, could be one of the areas destined to undergo divine purification. The growing persecution of Christians and the distancing from spirituality could render it vulnerable to events that will destabilize its political and social structure. The coastal areas of these cities in particular have been identified as particularly at risk due to their exposure to natural disasters, such as tsunamis, floods, and earthquakes. The signs of purification mentioned in the prophecies seem to be connected to these locations where sin and materialism are predominant. The people living in these cities may face severe difficulties, and the Virgin Mary has urged us to seek refuge in safer places, where faith is stronger and where we can be protected both spiritually and physically. If it is not possible to leave the cities or areas identified as vulnerable by the Medjugorje prophecies, the Virgin Mary invites us to take spiritual and practical measures to protect ourselves, both physically and spiritually. Preparation involves not only the material aspect, but primarily the spiritual one, as it is through faith and prayer that we can find true protection. Strengthening faith and prayer. The first measure to adopt is to continually nourish our spirituality. The Virgin Mary has always urged us to pray with the heart, to rediscover the value of daily prayer, such as the Rosary. In times of great tribulation, prayer is a powerful shield against both physical and spiritual dangers. Reciting the act of contrition, invoking the protection of Saint Michael the Archangel, and prayers for peace, are also recommended practices. Rosary. Praying the Rosary every day is one of the strongest means of protection that the Virgin Mary has suggested. Through this prayer, we can ask for her intercession, protection against evil, and strengthening of our faith. Eucharist and confession. Being in a state of grace is essential to face the times ahead. Regularly attending Mass and receiving the sacraments, particularly the Eucharist and confession, will give us the spiritual strength to overcome difficulties. Creating a spiritually protected environment. If we cannot physically leave our environment, we must strive to transform it into a spiritual refuge. This involves making conscious choices to live closer to God. There are several practical remedies we can adopt. Blessing the home and objects. Blessing the home, doors, windows, and all everyday objects is a physical and spiritual protection that allows us to maintain a sacred environment. The Virgin Mary has often emphasized the importance of having sacred images and crucifixes in our homes. Blessed candles. As mentioned in the prophecies, using blessed candles is a practical remedy that can bring protection to our home. When blessed candles are lit, they remind us of the light of Christ, which dispels spiritual darkness. Forming prayer communities. If we cannot physically leave our environment, we should try to form or join prayer groups. Community is an important resource in times of crisis, and the Virgin Mary has often urged us to pray together. The union of our spiritual forces can have a powerful impact. Prayer groups. If possible, seek to join a local prayer group or even form one that meets regularly to pray together, read the Bible, and share testimonies of faith. These groups are a valuable support in difficult times. Being prepared materially and practically. Although spiritual protection is the priority, the Virgin Mary has also suggested being prudent and materially prepared to face potential difficulties. This includes practical measures such as stockpiling food and water, creating an emergency plan, and preparing for crisis situations. Emergency supplies. Having supplies of non-perishable food, water, medicines, and other essential goods can be useful in the event of natural disasters or unforeseen situations. It is important to be ready without living in fear, but with confidence that God will provide what we need. Safe refuges. If it is not possible to leave home, it may be useful to have a safe place to take refuge in case of emergency. This could be a church, a convent, or the home of friends or relatives willing to host us. Remaining steadfast in hope. In any case, it is essential to remain anchored in hope. The Virgin Mary invites us not to give in to fear, but to trust in God. Hope is the light that guides us in the darkest moments. The purification, though painful, is also a path to the purification of the soul and a return to God. Remaining firm in hope also means responding to the events that will unfold with confidence, knowing that every difficulty has a deep meaning and that through suffering we can become stronger in faith. Spreading the word of God and hope. Another important remedy is to spread the messages of Medjugorje and the hope of Christ's return. Speak with others, encourage them to pray, seek spiritual refuge, and prepare for difficult times with faith and hope. The strength of a community of faith can make it easier to face difficulties. If we cannot leave the cities or dangerous areas, the Virgin Mary invites us to prepare spiritually, remain steadfast in prayer and faith, protect our home and family with blessings, and face every difficulty with courage, hope, and trust in God. Spiritual protection combined with practical measures will be our refuge in the times to come.